Good morning, good morning. Welcome to In the Garden with Joyful Living. I am your host, Kimberly Dixon. So while we take a moment for a few people to join us, let's take a look and see what's going on in the garden this morning. So here we have our beautiful yellow pear. And as you can see, it's extending beyond the shade cloth now, since it has gotten so tall. I'm actually going to cut that back a little bit because it's blocking my doorway for one. But the other reason I'm going to cut it is because tomatoes like airflow, and when it can't get any airflow, it's more prone to disease. But this, I've already been harvesting yellow tomatoes. There aren't any on this one that are ready this morning, but look at all of the tomatoes that are forming. Beautiful, beautiful tomatoes. Here we have another yellow pear tomato. Actually, this was supposed to be a slicing tomato, but it's not. So I'm going to have an abundance of yellow pear tomatoes to share with family and friends this year. My spearmint that I enjoy in fruit salads and watermelon, it is actually quite delicious. Y'all, this is the star of the garden, or one of the stars. And this is the orange striped tomato. Look at that tomato. It's as big as my hand. I actually had two on here that was this size, but during a windy day, during a storm, it fell off and it broke. But because it is just beginning the ripening process, I put it in a cardboard box indoors to see if it'll turn orange, because it's actually the heat that turns the fruit colors, not actually the sun. So there's another one growing there, and a little teeny tiny one there. So a lot of the flowers, look at how that one is just starting. And again, super tall, taller than me at this point. Here's my cherry tomato. I'm going to harvest some of those today. And although they're not completely red, I'll tell you why I'm going to harvest them. I prefer to have them completely vine ripened. And just how I think they're delicious when they're completely vine ripened, so do birds and so do insects. So picking them at this stage ensures that I get them. So I'm going to pick the ones that are, pretty red this morning. And then here we have another yellow pear. This was supposed to be an indigo cherry. I don't know what happened, but I've got 3 yellow pear plants. I don't know what I'm going to do with all of these yellow pears, but I'm gift them away. Gardening is about community, so I'm going to give them away. The Boston pickling cucumber is doing well. And you see in my containers, I've done some interplanting and companion planting with lettuce and marigolds. The plant shades the lettuce from the extreme heat of the day, and the marigold deters some insects. So there is a nice sized cucumber back there, and we got lots of others that are developing. So we're quite pleased. There's one that didn't get pollinated, so I actually will go ahead and pick that off so that the plant's not trying to put its energy into growing something that's dead. We have to do the same thing in our life. Determine if something is still viable, because if it's not, we're trying to put energy into something that's dead. That's the mancha cucumber. Here is my lovely eggplant with, see that eggplant back there? It's just about ready to pick, but not quite yet, just a little bit bigger. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that this morning. There are 3 more. That might be the same one. Okay, there's 2 additional more. And here is a container that earlier this year housed some potatoes, but now it has squash in it. Good morning, Sean. Ginger. Ginger is a really slow growing crop, and it requires a lot of heat. But it's coming along. It's coming along. But this is what I'm most excited about. My red pepper and my yellow bell pepper. I've been waiting, but I don't know if you can tell, it slightly has a blush color. It's going to turn red very soon now. Here is the sweet banana pepper. Look at all those peppers back there. And my jalapeno. Good morning, Vicki. So this jalapeno plant is not doing as well as it could be. It's turning a little yellow. So I wasn't sure if it was because of all the rain that we're getting or if it because it needs to be fed. So I gave it a slow release fertilizer and some liquid fertilizer, not at the same time, but earlier this week, because it's much, as you can see, it's a lot more yellow than the plants that's beside of it. And that yellow color is an indication that it needs to be fed. But look at this, y'all. Look at that yellow bell pepper. It's been green for a long time, and you see there's one back there that's still green. I picked one yesterday that was green because it was getting sun scald, it was just getting too much direct sun. So I went ahead and picked it. But I'm going to pick that today because just like with the tomatoes, it'll continue to change colors once it gets in the house. And the sweeter it gets, the more it will attract insects. So I'm going to pick that, and I'm going to pick the red one today and let it finish turning in the house. I don't know what I'm going to do with my kale or my collard greens, because I've been doing everything that I should do as far as picking off the caterpillars, spraying the plants, but as you can see, it is still just getting eaten up, and I haven't been able to get anything off of this plant this year. It's just littered with holes. One morning I came out here. Luckily, it grows pretty quickly. I came out here and one was completely stripped down. I mean, bare. So here is a late season tomato that I planted. Now, normally you wouldn't plant back to back with two nightshade crops, which is a potato and a tomato. But I amended the soil. And good morning, Roz. Good morning, Evangelist. Amended the soil so that I can have late season tomatoes. And the other reason I did that is because I don't have a slicing tomato, a red slicing tomato, and the summer is not complete without a tomato sandwich. I'm just country. So I planted this one, and just about the time when the other ones will start to slow down production, this one will be at the height of production. And in North Carolina, with Zone 7B, we have such a long growing season that July, you can start a second round of some vegetables. Make sure you check your days to maturity, because that's going to determine whether it'll get mature before it gets too cold. But cucumber, squash, some tomatoes, a lot of things you can plant in July and still get a harvest from before it gets too cold, because a lot of times it'll be November before we start getting those really hard frosts. Again, my collard greens just ate up. This one looks pretty good, but look at this one. It's ridiculous. I think would be delicious strawberries. Oh, there's one. So I was saying some things will continue to turn once you pick them. Well, unfortunately, strawberries don't continue to turn. So if I pick this at this stage, it's not going to get any more ripe than that. The bad thing is, if I let them stay on the vine till they get ripe, then the squirrels think it's breakfast time. I have not gotten good morning, Michelle. I have not gotten a single strawberry this entire season. It's pretty to look at, though. And this is my iris and begonias. Iris is blooming in late spring. So it's done blooming, but it's a pretty container. So we got a few people watching this morning, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I really appreciate all of you joining the call. But announcement, next Friday at 7 p.m., I will be hosting a health seminar and tasting party here at my home in Knightdale. If you know me personally, and you know anyone who is suffering from diabetes, high blood pressure, you or someone you know, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, arthritis or any other kind of joint pain, eczema, psoriasis, you need to make sure that you're in the place. And well, if you're watching and you're like, well, Kim, I watch you, but I don't know you personally. Well, then we have an option for you too. Send me a direct message, comment on the video, and we can get you into a Zoom so that you don't miss the information. You don't want to miss this opportunity, I promise you. So next Friday, 7 p.m., health seminar, tasting party. You'll get to tour the garden and see what's going on within it a little bit and find out what you can do to improve your health in addition to gardening, because I'll tell you more about that at the party. But what we're going to talk about today is feeding your plants. So you need to eat, and so do your plants. And just like that jalapeno I showed you just a few moments ago, it's turning yellow. Now, I've been feeding everything consistently, but sometimes when you're dealing with pots and it rains a lot, it leaches the nutrients out and you have to feed. When you're with your garden, you want to give your plants a liquid-based fertilizer, something that they can uptake easily, that is readily available to them every 1 to 2 weeks. That is something like your fish emulsion, or even some of the powdered ones that you mix with water. Those are quick release fertilizers. But you also want to give them a slow release fertilizer. When you are planting, you want to mix a slow release fertilizer just so that the plant is fed long term. But in addition to that, after 60 to 90 days, you want to give it a second application of that slow release fertilizer, because it just boosts your plants. We have to eat every day. They have to eat every day. And I think of a slow release fertilizer as having a hearty meal. So what I have here, you can buy quick release fertilizer, and you can also make it. So what I have here, whoops, a piece of paper stuck to my jar. This is eggshells and water. And as you notice, the eggshell is kind of powdered up, and I did that intentionally. I ground it up in my little blender. I forget what the actual name of it is. But this is eggshells. Now, when you just throw eggshells in your container or on the ground, that's fine, but it's not available to the plant. It has to be broken down, and that can take years for that to occur. So I always grind up my eggshells and put them in water so that more of the nutrients are readily available. This container has banana peelings and used coffee grinds. Don't use new coffee grinds, but used coffee grinds. Used coffee grinds have an abundance of nitrogen in them. And your plants love nitrogen because that's what gives it that healthy green color, and that what's helped give it that growth. But you also want to use banana peelings. And that banana peelings can be used a couple of different ways. Again, I do it in the water so that the nutrients are leached out into the water, and then so that it helps the banana to degrade some. You can just cut your banana peeling into smaller pieces and put it in the container with your plants. I have done that as well. But what I make sure to do is I cover it back up with dirt, because you don't want rotting vegetables to attract rodents. So anytime you're throwing food scraps of something to compost in your plant, make sure you cover it up with dirt, because otherwise squirrels, just like my poor strawberries, squirrels, rodents, anything that's hungry is going to be attracted to that. So don't attract rodents to your house unknowingly by putting food scraps in your containers. But you want to make sure that you're feeding your plants consistently, because gardening is so rewarding, but I would be remiss if I didn't tell you it wasn't hard work. It is hard work. And not taking care of your plants after you planted them is a disservice to you, because you put your money and your time into starting these plants, but you don't take care of it during the seeding season, and then you're disappointed with the results. Plants need to be fed just like we need to eat. Once a week, you want to give them a slow release fertilizer when you plant them, and then 90 days later you want to give up, I didn't say that correctly, once a week or every 2 weeks you want to give them a quick release fertilizer, something that is water soluble, fish emulsion, lots of different ones, but that's going to give your plants a quick burst. But then you want to give them that slow release every 90 days, initially mixed into the soil and then top dressed with it once the plant is established. Then you can make your own fertilizers. But there are lots of things that we use in our kitchen every day that can be used to give your boots a plant. Use coffee grinds, banana peelings. Banana peelings have lots of nutrients in them, potassium and micronutrients that your plants need, just like we need micronutrients. They need them too. So a cat just ran across my deck. But just blew my whole train of thought. So you can make those things in your home with just by putting them in a little bit of water in a container with a lid on it and keeping it about 2 weeks so that the nutrients get extracted into the water. Now with the banana peeling, that one is super concentrated, so you only put a few ounces in the bottom of a watering can, fill the watering can up, and feed your plants. The coffee grinds or the eggshell, I do the same thing, but I don't dilute it because your tomatoes and your peppers, they need calcium so that they don't get blossom end rot. And what blossom end rot is, the bottom of the fruit starts to rot before it's fully ripened. So you want to make sure that you're feeding your plant. We need to eat every day. They need to eat too. And when you're dealing with containers, they have a limited supply of nutrients. It's not like in the ground, and even sometimes in the ground you still need to give them additional nutrients depending on how much the land has been formed. The other thing I want to talk about is fruit size. And so let me walk over here and show you again. So I showed you these eggplants, and they're not super humongous, and they're just not quite ready yet, but they're almost ready to be picked. And these Boston pickling cucumbers, that I'm gonna give that another day. But here's what I want to tell you about fruit size. So it's wonderful when we see the videos and the pictures of people with big, humongous vegetables. And I'll be honest, you want to grow vegetables that size just to say, I can grow something that big. But the truth is, you really don't want your vegetables to get that big. You want them to be on the smaller to medium size, because here's what happens if you let your fruit get too big. They are less tender, they have less flavor, and they have more seeds inside. So have you ever cut into a zucchini or a cucumber and it's this much flesh and then a circle of seeds that big? Well, the longer your plant stays on the vine, the more seeds it develops. So let's try to get away from the tendency to want to grow these super huge vegetables. Your vegetables have more flavor, they're more tender, and they have more flesh. So even though the fruit is bigger, it actually has less usable substance to it. If it's a bunch of seeds, you're not getting anything from that. What you want is the flesh. So try to pick your vegetables before they get humongous so that you can get all the benefit of it and get the true taste of it, because again, the larger it gets, it starts to lose its flavor. And the last thing we're going to talk about is gardening structures. So again, we see these complicated bills and they are beautiful, but look, there's a cat, that are beautiful. But if you're just trying to create space, that is not always necessary. So when I moved here, I knew I wasn't planning to stay here long term, and that's still the plan. I'm planning to move next year, but I needed a structure because just around the deck area, it's not enough space for me. I needed some tiers so that I could get in as much as I wanted. And the other thing about having your plants elevated is the water is not standing on your deck. So if your pot is sitting directly on your deck, it has a tendency to make the wood degrade quicker. So building the structures, you can create a structure so simply and so easily. This is simply cinder blocks and treated lumber, but it gave me that extra space I needed for additional containers. And I just put a cinder block on each end and then one in the middle for additional support. And now I have this structure that is capable of giving me the space I needed, but it's also not an eyesore. Because, we see building a raised bed. I want raised beds eventually, but building a raised bed entirely or buying these kits sometimes it can be expensive, but you can still even have a raised bed using a simple structure. You can get the little corner cinder block stones from any big box store, treated lumber, and you just slide it down in the slots and make it as high as you want it, so that you can have a raised bed that's not a permanent structure. Because a lot of times when you are living in an apartment or you're renting a house or you're in a place that is not going to be yours long term, or even if you're moving somewhere and you're like, I'm only moving here for a few years, you can still have your structures. There are just different ways of doing it. So that is one of the main things I like to encourage people with gardening is there are different ways to do things. Whoops. And I like to do a lot of different experiments just to see what is going to work for me, because what works for one person may not necessarily work for you. So again, we want to make sure that we are feeding our plants, that we are picking them before they get too big, and that we're taking advantage of structures that are easy to create. This is my planting table. Y'all, this is a plastic table off of Amazon. A folding card table. I think it was like 25 or 30 bucks. But it's plastic, and so that means it's durable for the weather. It's durable for dirt and all of that, so it's not easily damaged. And because it was inexpensive, I'm not really concerned if it gets damaged. But we have to take advantage of our resources and not wait. Look at that yellow bell pepper. It's just shining from way over here. Just so eye-catching. Isn't that beautiful? I know that thing is delicious and sweet. But again, I'm going to finish letting it turn inside, because your bell peppers, your jalapenos, and that's a red one on the corner that's just beginning to turn. All of those tomatoes, they will continue to turn once they get in the house. But other fruit, like strawberries, once it's picked, it's done. It's not going to get any more ripe. So that one that's hanging down, I can't pick it yet because it's not completely ripe. Good morning, Elizabeth. And I'm sure it's not as sweet as it can be, but I can guarantee you in the morning when I come out, it's going to be gone because the squirrel's going to get it overnight. But I don't even get upset about it because I realize this is outside. This is their domain, and animals are going to eat just like we need to eat. So I don't get upset when something is lost to a squirrel or whatever it may be. But again, if you didn't catch the whole video, guys, and I'm sorry, if anybody had any comments, for some reason the last couple of weeks, Facebook has not been showing me the comments during the live, and after I end the broadcast, I see that there were lots of comments. So I'll come back and address any of your comments. If you have any questions, still put them. Oh, okay, there's my comment. Elizabeth said, great advice, Kimmy. Thank you. So now I'm glad to see that the comments are showing. But again, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to know specifically about, ask me that too, and we can address that on a live in the coming weeks. Because again, I do this every Saturday morning at about 8:30 because I have a training that I attend at 9. But guys, thank you so much for getting on this episode of In the Garden with Joyful Living. I'm going to sit out here and finish my coffee in my VIP cup, versatile, intelligent, and perky. So you guys have a wonderful Saturday. It's humid out here. I just, random thoughts just pop in my head. I'm sorry. It's humid out here. I'm sweating just a little bit, but I am sweating. So I don't know if I'm going to sit out here or not. I think I'm going to go inside. But guys, have a fantastic day, and I will see you on next Saturday. Bye-bye. I love you.